Hello and welcome back. My name is Avilas. You are watching Selenium Express, and if you just found this video from a YouTube search, you might be looking for a topic called dynamic proxy or maybe proxy design pattern. And if you're looking for the same, go for the dynamic proxy with this timestamp, and the proxy design pattern will be available in this timestamp. But if you're a subscriber of this particular channel, holder, I have something to share with you. So we are going to start a new series over here called the transaction management in Spring. And for this, we need some prerequisite. And the prerequisite will be Spring, of course. And if you guys are a subscriber of this channel, most probably you should be aware with the Spring framework. But one more prerequisite that we need over here is called the dynamic proxy. And that's why actually I'm making this particular video. So to understand dynamic proxy, you also need to understand proxy design pattern. So make sure use this video as the prerequisite before you jump for the next video on this particular series, which will be on the transaction management topic, Spring framework. I hope you are excited because this is one of the very important module of Spring framework where you will be, it's not a module, it's obviously some concept, but this concept is pretty much required for your real-time project as well as for your interview preparation. And hopefully you guys are in a banking domain or a insurance domain or a sales domain, or maybe something related to e-commerce. If you are working on this kind of project, make sure you should be good with this particular topic. So use this video as a prerequisite, or if you have already the prerequisite, just switch off, relax, sit back, and maybe just wait for the next video, which I'll be uploading shortly. But right now it's time for the proxy design pattern in Java. So let's switch to this particular topic and I'll see you in the video. All right, so basically I don't have time right now to record the video of this particular topic. So what I'll be doing, I'll be using some of my recorded session that I have took in one of my live bootcamp maybe. So I'll be using those videos over here. So you guys can watch this video anyhow. For you guys, it will not be a meta, but yeah, I have used some of the recorded session from one of my bootcamp over here. So hopefully you'll be finding it helpful. And if you find it helpful and if you're more interested for a topic like this, keep me posted with the comment in the comment section. Perfect. So right now, before we go for add transactional annotation. So for this week, we'll talk about add transactional annotation. A lot of in-depth deep dive we'll be doing because it's a very important topic to understand and to do the day-to-day job, as well as if you want to clear your interviews, it is going to be pretty much crucial because you're going to be getting so many different types of questions from this particular topic. Okay, so what I'm planning to do before I jump to add transactional and before I start implementing various different things, I also want to give you some prerequisite. I don't know if you have it or not because few people you got some good amount of experience, 7+, 8+, 9+, but people who are just getting started with Java, maybe this is going to be useful for you because I'm not sure if you already got this concept or not. This is basic core Java concept, but let's try to brush off our things first and then we'll go to add transactional tomorrow, because the things that I'll be doing today, tomorrow I'll be using it pretty much. So make sure that you put all your concentration right over here. Okay, before we go for add transactional annotation, anyone recall how Spring is managing the transaction behind the scene? What concept it does uses behind the scene? Anyone wants to give any answer to me? What kind of concept or technique Spring is using behind the scene to do the transaction or to maintain the transaction? Anyone? Akhil?
Yeah, I think some proxy.
Proxy? Okay. What kind of proxy? There are many different types of proxies in it. Virtual proxy, remote proxy, protection proxy. you know,
But specifically, I remember you told something related to @transactional. It uses some some proxy pattern behind it.
Yeah,
Because if
correct.
anything goes wrong, it will automatically roll back.
Correct.
And
Correct. Yeah, that is very minimal kind of thing that we have done previously. Yeah, that's correct. That
okay.
Akhil, proxy is the pattern it uses behind the scene, and also we in Spring, basically is uses some technique, cross-cutting technique. What is that? How we will be basically achieving the cross-cutting technique in Spring, if you remember, Akhil?
Spring AOP
Spring AOP.
with the yeah,
Correct.
AOP, right?
Correct.
And you will have cross-cutting concern and active. What was that? I forgot the names of it.
Yeah,
There
no
was some
problem.
three
Cross-cutting
terms.
concern, because see, the thing is that if you're gonna learn a transactional annotation, you'll be learning. You have to learn a little bit about AOP. Because Spring will be doing those transactional stuff behind the scene by using the AOP. And if you're gonna learn AOP, the way your AOP works by using proxy. Okay, and what kind of proxy? And there comes a term called dynamic proxy. And today we'll be talking about dynamic proxy in Java, how we'll be creating the dynamic proxy. But before we talk about dynamic proxy, we got another word, proxy. What do you mean by that? I don't want to go so in depth of it. That's a design pattern. We can talk about that a lot in our future design pattern courses. But now I want you guys to give me some specific answer. What is your thoughts about proxy? Anyone? What do you think about proxy? Lavanya? Proxy, when you hear this word, what do you think about it?
It's a class that actually be a substitute or a placeholder for any kind of other objects.
Exactly, right answer. So it's basically proxy is a pattern. When someone say proxy is something like on in behalf of, right, or in place of, right. So you don't want to call. I don't want to call Akhil directly. I will tell Lavanya that hey, you call Akhil, right? This is the same thing. If you remember, guys, in your schooling days, right? So you used to be get late, right? And you used to tell your friend that hey, go and give a proxy for my attendance, right? And your friends used to give a proxy attendance whenever your teacher calls your name, that hey, whether that guy is present, and your friend used to say present sir, right? So basically that's a proxy. And when actually the teacher call your name, and he calls your name, and he basically tell you to go to the board and draw something, your friend make a call to you that hey, the teacher calling your name, and he's asking something to draw in the blackboard or in the whiteboard. And you used to have a backdoor entry, and you used to go to the board and do the work by yourself. So your friend here is a proxy, because he is actually calling you. Your teacher is not directly calling you. Your teacher say hi, and your friend actually replied, and when your teacher actually looking for you, your friend is actually giving a call that hey, now your physical presence is needed, and now you are going back to the board and drawing something right there. So this is going to be a very nice example. Somik is saying it is an extra layer before reaching to the main service object. Exactly, pinpoint answer. So basically, if you're going to see this, I have written something. So proxy design pattern, whenever we talk about, there are a couple of different things we talk basically in place of or in behalf of. This is the exact meaning of proxy, or some literal meaning of proxy if you're gonna think about the proxy design pattern. So it's pretty simple. Previously, we used to make a direct call to the object, and this is a real object from our client. We make a direct call to here. But if you're gonna use the proxy pattern, this is your client, you make a call to the proxy, and the proxy make a call to the real object. This is just one extra layer, as Somik said. We will not be directly hitting the main real object or our service object. We will call our real object, or maybe treat this as a service object, a service class where our business code will go. Imagine here is your business code, but before someone will make a call to the business code, there is one extra layer, and here you're going to do certain stuff. Maybe you can check whether this client is a valid client or not. You can check whether this client got a valid IP address or not. Should we actually pass this request to the real object? You can check over here, who is the client is basically coming in, how many times he's hitting our service. You can log, you can trace, you can do a whole variety of things. You can implement security, you can do a whole variety of things right over here inside the proxy layer. Because before you make a call to the real object, you're going to be maintaining all sort of extra stuff right here inside the proxy. Okay, so basically you can treat like, yourself and a bank. If you're going to go to the bank directly and going to withdraw some cash, this is like, you are going to bank, you are driving to the bank, you are withdrawing the money and things like that. So if you're going to see this one, this is you and this is the bank, which is the real subject. But in order to interact right now, you need an ATM machine, and this is a proxy. You don't have to go to the bank directly. You go to the ATM and withdraw the money, and whenever you are withdrawing the money, the ATM is basically contacting to the bank and giving you back the cash, right? So this is something that I want you to do with the code, and maybe we will I will just give you one, we'll do one program right now, and I'll give you a couple of assignments to do. So let's create a very simple Java project, no Spring Boot project, very simple Java project here. Okay, and I'll give a project name as, let's say, Proxy, and I'll do a finish. Okay, I'll not create
Abhilash, one question.
Yeah, okay.
Abhilash, when you say talking about transaction management, you mean @transactional?
@transactional, but we will come into that. @transactional has various different things. It's not only the annotation that you are seeing @transactional. It got propagation level, isolation level, a lot of different things we can talk about in that particular chapter. But before I implement those things, Akhil, I will be using some certain things which is going to make you guys uncomfortable. So before in order to before we do certain stuff, let's try to understand the prerequisite first. Okay, and with this class you will be comfortable, and from tomorrow onwards we can start directly implementing the dynamic proxy. We can do whatever, because see, okay, if you want to make some call using Spring gonna use something behind the scene, and if I'm gonna address those things directly, maybe it is gonna be tough to understand if you never experienced those things. So I'm gonna be doing few things today, and I want you guys to practice the same thing maybe today itself, and from tomorrow onwards things will be pretty much easy, and you don't have to go and check here and there that what Avilas is saying, or I'm not able to catch his words or something like that. Okay, so the main intention of today's class is to learn dynamic proxy. But before I go for dynamic proxy, I want you to do a simple program with proxy, so that everyone will, it's a very simple thing. So guys, imagine the same example that I have given you, your friend will give the proxy for you when the teacher calls. Okay, same thing. Let's do some same thing like this. So maybe what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna create a new let's say a new interface, and let's say this is going to be a daily, let's say interface name will be daily session. Okay, do a finish, and let's say there is a interface called daily session, and I got a method here called attained lesson. Okay, so let's say there is one simple method here inside a interface called daily session, and let's say a student want to attend every day session. Okay, so if a student want to attend, he has to override this method and need to give an implementation. So I have an impl class for this daily session, let's say a student, right? And this student let's say is going to implement the daily session, and he got to override the unimplemented method. And let's say here I can just have a simple log for now. Let's say attending the session. Okay, let's say the student is attending the session. We got a very simple thing over here. And let's say in order to attend the lesson, as I said, the student has to give the attendance. So maybe I can create a attendance object here. Okay, and I don't have a class called attendance, so let me create it quickly here inside the same package. And inside the attendance, let's say I got a couple of variables. Let's say today's date I'm going to be tracking, private date, let's say date for the today. I'll do Control-Shift-O, import the java.util.date, and another one, let's say private boolean, let's say present. Okay, if the student is present or not. And maybe I can say is present. If you are not able to understand present, this is going to be more readable. I'm going to say is present. Okay, and let's say we have a constructor to initialize this couple of things. So source, I'll do generate. So there you go. So I got a constructor in order to initialize all these variables which is present over here. Okay, so now if you're going to go to the student, so let's say obviously the student need to give the attendance. So let me just create a constructor. So constructor using field, do generate, and now you can see that I got a constructor here inside the student class. Control-A, Control-Shift-F. So if you want to build the student object, obviously you will be using this constructor, and you need to pass in the attendance object. So if the attendance is there, then only he'll be able to attend the session. Let's say this is the logic that I want to build. But the problem here is that, let's say I have a main class, right? Let's say this is a teacher class, and this is my client, right? This is my client class. Let's say I have a main method, and this client, who is my teacher, want to build the object of the student. Let's say student is equal to new student, right? And he has to give a attendance, so new attendance here, and he has to pass a date here. Let's say the date is today's date. Let's say new date. Okay, and the next thing is whether he is present or not. As I have told you, attendance got a couple of things, date and is present, and is present is boolean, so it is going to take true or false. If he is present, then it's true. If it is not present, then it's false. Let's say it is true. All right, so now we have built a student object. You can take many variables here, like the student name, ID, and blah 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 stuff. I'm not taking those things, just trying to prove my point here. So now you can just call the add relation method, and obviously add relation method will be giving you these things back. So if you're going to go back to a right click, run as Java application, you will be seeing that we will be able to call the method, and it is saying that attending the lesson because the student is present here. Okay, what about the student is not present? And I'm going to change it back to false. And now if you're going to do run as Java application, you're going to see still we are able to attend the lesson. The student is able to attend the lesson even though the student is not present. So now here what I need to do, if I want to implement the logic like if the student is not present, then he'll not be able to attend the lesson. Then how we supposed to achieve that thing? You'll be saying, okay, well, this is pretty simple. Go to the attend lesson, and you can drop your code right over here. And this is something that I don't want to do because there can be many clients. There can be maybe I will come back to this particular point, but here I'll not be dropping my code over here. Rather, I'll create a proxy. As I have said, I'm doing this, right? I am making a direct call. I'm making a direct call like this. See, like this. Now I want to have one extra layer like this. I'm going to make a call to the proxy. The client is going to make a call to the proxy, and the proxy is going to make a call to the real object. And in order to do that, here in the proxy, I'm going to be creating a new class, and this is going to be a proxy class. Let's say the proxy class will be same as your base class. So I'm going to say student proxy. It's going to look pretty much similar. Student proxy, do finish. And now here I'm going to extend to the student class itself, right? So I'm going to inherit all the properties from the student class. It is asking me to override the constructor. Let me do that so that it will call the super constructor. And the next thing is that I'm going to do a control space. I'm going to override this method. But here, I want to do what? I want to call the superclass attenuation method. Now you can see I am inside the student proxy method. I'm actually overriding the attenuation method, because if you remember inside the student class, I got an attenuation method. I'm overriding that, and then I am calling the superclass attenuation method. That means this student class attenuation method I'm calling. If you want to click over here, you'll be reaching the attenuation method of the student class, right? So I'm establishing a new layer in between the client and the student, which is going to be the student proxy. But here I'm not only going to call the original object, rather I want to do some check. What kind of check? Like if, okay, and I can do if. So I basically want to do attendance. What is that? Can I go there? Yes, attendance. I don't have a getter and setter, isn't it? Create getter and setter. Okay, go back, and here can I do if super dot, I'm gonna say super dot get attendance. If this is true, then only call this guy, or else we're gonna throw exception. Else we're gonna throw new runtime exception, and we're gonna say that student is not present and can't attend the lesson. Correct, right? So
it's runtime exceptions. Something else was there.
Okay, runtime exception, right? This guy. Control S. So what is happening here? Change the return type to Boolean. So get attendance.
Get attendance dot get.
Oh, okay. One second. Attendance. Get attendance. Oh yeah. So we need to have a hold of this guy, right? Okay. Let's do like this. Super dot get attendance dot is present. Get attendance dot. What is this getter and setter method there? It's not there. Can I have the getter and setter for this one? Getter and setter for is present, so that I'll be able to access this is present right here. So super dot get attendance dot is present. Okay, if this is true, then attend the lesson. If it is not true, then just throw a runtime exception. So I can just end it over here, and let's try if it is working, right? So right now I can go to to the main class, which is the teacher class, and right over here the teacher will not will not directly interact with the implementation, which is your student object. Right now he will be talking to the proxy, right? So here I can just do student proxy instead, right? And I'll import this one, and there you go. And now if it is false, now I think we'll have our validation will trigger, and this is gonna tell us that, well, student is not present and cannot attend the lesson. Now if you're gonna make it true, obviously the validation will say that okay, the student is present, then the things will work fine. Okay, attending the lesson is the answer. And if you're gonna make it false, obviously it will not work. So I just want to tell you with this particular pattern is that, right, you need to call the student proxy from the client. Your client is your teacher, and you are calling the student proxy directly, not the student object directly. So we are actually dealing with a proxy object rather of an original object. But whenever you are dealing with the proxy object, let's say student, or maybe you can just change the reference to your daily lesson. That's also fine. You can just make it daily lesson, okay, and daily lesson with D small. Copy this guy, paste it over here. Now I'm directly coding it to the interface. Let's see whether this guy is working. And of course, we're gonna get student cannot attend the lesson because he is not present. And if you're gonna make it true, this is gonna work fine. So we are actually having one more layer established between our real object, which is our student object, and then the student proxy. So this is one guy over here, and this is one guy. So this is the original one, and this is the proxy one. Okay, and you can see the proxy attenuation method is making a real call. It is calling super.attenuation because the proxy is right now extends to the student. Okay, hopefully this is making sense. This is called protection proxy. I don't want to go very detailed into that, but I want to just let you know about the definition of proxy. If you're going to look at the definition of proxy right now, so it provides an object that acts as a substitute for a real service object used by a client. A proxy receives a client request, does some work, and then passes the request to the original object. And that's what we have done. And if you're going to see over here, the student proxy is a proxy object, and whenever it's going to receive the attenuation call, it is going to doing some work over here. And once it is doing that particular thing, it is basically passing the thing. Otherwise, instead of this if else, I can just do like this. I can move this guy over here and move this throw thing to the if clause. And if it is not true, I can do these things, and you can see now the proxy receives the request. You can see the daily, if I'll go to the client class, which is my teacher, it is basically calling the attenuation on top of the daily session, and daily session is a proxy right now. And right now the attenuation receives the call. The attenuation, if you're gonna go to the implementation of the proxy, is receives the call, does some work, and then passes the request to the super class. Okay, hopefully this is making sense, right? Tell me yes or no if you guys are okay with this thing. Yes, please. You guys are able to understand this thing?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So now let's go for the next thing. Got something on the chart? Okay, now let's go for the next thing. This is a protection. This is what we call a protection proxy. Just like that, we have remote proxy, virtual proxy, and blah 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 stuff. I'm gonna be giving you a couple of assignments. Maybe I'm gonna be coming back to this thing again. But yeah, forget about all these things and let's start fresh, right? Just wipe out everything. I think you got a very simple understanding that is basically a layer between the original object and the client. Okay, so the client will make the call to the proxy will make a call to the real subject. Okay, this is something that I have told you. Now I will go back to the dynamic proxy that I am basically interested for in this lesson. This is something that I want to teach. Now this is just to building the foundation a little bit. Now, before we go for dynamic proxy, I think there will be some term will come. I will just check your understanding. Maybe I'll go and create a class here called a test class. And now let's just try to have some, a little bit of fun kind of discussion. I want you to give a task. Okay, if I want to load a class in Java, for an example, I got a class here called student, right? So if I want to load this class in Java, then how can I load it? Here in this method, in the test class, I want to load the student class or the teacher class or the student proxy class or any java.util.date class, java.lang.string class. If I want to load any custom classes or any predefined classes in Java, what is the method I have to use in order to load a Java class? Anyone? Hey, don't say me that you don't know this one. Lavanya, Nagasri, Prashant.
Can we use class loader?
Yes, that's what I want to hear. Class.forName, right?
Oh.
Class.forName, and you have to give your package name over here. So let's say I want to load this class. Then I can copy the qualified name of this one and can paste it over here. Guys, this is not related to proxy or something, right? I am just trying to refresh your concept of the topic reflection a little bit more. If you don't know reflection, also don't worry. Maybe whatever things I'm going to be discussing right now, that will be well enough. Now I have just asked you a question that if I want to load any kind of classes in Java, then how can we do it? So class.forName is something Lavanya said, and of course this is the right answer. Using this guy, if you're gonna do control 1, assign statement to the new variable over here, and I can say class information. Now this is my student info. So now Lavanya, can you tell me what this student info will contain? Now I'm loading the class. That means what? The class will contain what?
You have the class in the class path, I think, Abhilash.
Yeah, I have the class in the class path. Here it is there.
You can use the functions of that.
Exactly. Loading something. If you want to load something, you want to load data. So what is the data content? Obviously the information about that class. So whenever you're gonna do class.foreignname, what it is gonna give you back? It is going to give you back about the information of the student class. Like, well, the student class, maybe I will not touch this package. Okay, I will not touch this package because I need to give you this one, right? Let me say proxy. It's not proxy, it's basically something else that we want to learn. But let me just close everything, go back to source main Java. Let me go to the test class. Okay, now we're going to be talking about a little bit about the class.foreignname. Okay, this is going to give you the information about this class. And if you're going to do control1, assign statement to the new local variable, now this is going to get you the information about the student class. So you can write student info here. So what is the information is actually? So obviously what your class will contain, the class will contain constructor. Maybe you can have many constructor like this, a no-R constructor, a single R constructor. Maybe you have 2 parameter, 3 parameter constructor. If you have more variables, you have different methods like add relation, get attendance, and blah, blah, blah. So you can get all this information by using this object, right? You guys know about this, right? If you're going to do student info dot get, let's say you can see you have a lot of different things. Get constructors will get you all the constructor, isn't it? Control1, assign statement to a new local variable. Now this is going to give you a constructor array, like whatever the constructor is there inside the class, and then you can have a simple for each loop to loop over this constructor right here. And I can say I can just copy the type, paste it over here, and let's say constructor, and you can just do a sysout, and it's going to print all the constructor that you got inside the class. If you're going to do run as Java application, it's going to print out all the constructor here. See, there are a couple of constructor. One is no param, and one is which is going to take the attendance. Proxy, don't worry about this word. This is just the package name, right? Forget about proxy right now. So you got a couple of constructor inside the student class, and this is what it is printing. And you can see this. There are a couple of constructors over here. This is one, and this is another one. Okay. Now, if you want to get all the methods, now how can you do that? Obviously, anyone know how to get all the methods?
We have a class called method, sir.
Yeah, we have a class called method. That is going to contain the method information.
Methods.
So obviously the method will be get. There are two methods. Get declared method, I believe. Okay, you can see get declared method. Get declared method will get you all the methods inside the class. Like, you know, even it is private, public, any methods will be, it will give you back. And another one is there called get methods. I believe this is only going to give you the public method. So maybe I'll just go for get declared method, and this is going to get you all the methods. And maybe I'm going to say get declared method. I'm not looking for any specific method. I'm going to look for all the methods. So get declared methods. This is the class. Also, this is the method. And as Srinivas said, it is going to return you an array of method. This method is a class, okay, which is going to have the method information. Just like you have a class called class, you also got a method called you also got a class called method. And now we're going to get a array of methods. Now if you're gonna, you can look over this one, Control C, Control V, and declare methods. You can loop over this one, and this is going to be the type. Paste it over here, and I'm going to say here method, and you can loop over all the methods right here, and do a right click, run as Java application. It's going to print out all the methods that you got, and look at that, you got 3 methods here called set attendance, get attendance, and attend relations. Right? Not only the methods and constructor, you can also do variety of things. You can basically load your annotations. You can do anything with the the class object that you are getting. It's basically going to be the metadata and the class related information, it will be loading over here. And this is one way to load a class. I think you guys know about that. You got couple of other ways. For an example, you already have there is some other way to load a class. For an example, instead of using class.foreignname, let's say if you got a string like this, a package, a qualified name like this, you can load the class like this, right? Otherwise, you can also do your class. Let's say you want to load the data from a student class. So you can write student. So this is a class, student.class, and you can actually assign this one, I believe, to a variable. So I can write, var v. I think this is gonna work, or maybe you can just, this is Java, the Java feature, the new recent version of Java feature. Otherwise, you can just do something like this, student, and now this is going to get you the information. So what is going to give you back? Class of, sorry, not student. It's going to give you a class of student. This is going to get you the same thing. You can do student dot get, and you can say get annotation, get declared methods. You can also do get constructor. You can do whatever you want to do with this guy. So this one and this one are same. This is with a in a string you are loading the class. This is with a class. If it is present, you are loading the class like this. Or you can also do something like this. If you already have an object, let's say you got an object like this, student is equal to new student. Okay, and you got to do something like student dot class dot get class. I think this is it. Maybe I can just do student dot class or get class, and this will get you the, maybe if I'm going to do assign statement to a new local variable, it is going to give you the class object. So there is some wildcard entries. That means this object which is going to return to you is extends to the student class. Maybe you can remove it for better understanding for now, and you can say student info, right? So this is also the similar thing. Okay, I hope that you understand. And here we are basically loading the class by using the get class method. Previously I have just used the class name directly and dot class, and this is another way. By using the class dot foreign name, you can load the class metadata information. Okay, so just want you to make you familiar with this class that we have called class, and also the various methods that we have. I have one small requirement, guys. Okay, imagine I'm going to give you one small requirement, then I'm going to be switching to dynamic proxy. For an example, guys, I'm going to go back to the student class. This is a task for you. So I'll go back to the student class. Imagine I have a couple of methods. Let's say attend lesson. Maybe I can have one more method, attend lesson, and I'm going to take integer, let's say ID, and I'm going to say attending the session. Okay, student with ID, let's say plus ID, and attending the lesson. Okay, so let's say I got a couple of methods. Attend lesson, which takes a integer as a parameter, and attend lesson, which takes nothing as a parameter. Now I want you guys to call this method using reflection. Can you guys do it? Okay, I want to call this method because reflection is not only related to loading the information, also you can make calls. And you already know this, but for your information, your framework like Spring, Java EE framework, Java persistence framework like JPA, they all uses reflection to create objects. And right now, let's say I want to create, I want to call that particular method that I have just created. I got a couple of methods right now. Let's say I want to call this method attend lesson. This method I want to create. This method I want to call from this test.java class. Then how I will be calling that particular method using the reflection. Just want to give you an impression that the reflection is not only for loading the classes or loading the classes like this. You can also invoke the methods that you have inside your class. Not only the methods, you can also invoke the constructor. You can create objects. So anybody know how to basically call this particular method that we have over here? How can I call this method inside this class? Anyone? Yes? Anyone, if you guys know? Supriya, Srinivas?
I think we have some get method.
Correct.
It is there, sir. The
Yeah,
get method, using that we can get the method, we can invoke that.
Correct. So maybe this is basically where we are basically getting the class information. We can do student info dot get declared method. Maybe the method might be private, so I'll go for the get declared method. And can I find one get declared method? And here you're gonna be giving the method name. So you'll go to your class, and let's say I will be calling this method. So copy the method name, attenuation, let's say this method, copy this name, go back here, give the method that you want to call. Then the next thing is the argument of the method. So what is the argument that we have? Let's say we want to call this method, sorry, this is a constructor. Let's say we want to call this method, then we have the argument called integer id. Then the type of the argument is integer. So I'll go back here, and here I need to pass in the thing. And there can be many, right now we have only one argument, right? There can be many arguments. There it can be having 2 parameter, 3 parameter, 4 parameter, arguments right over here. Integer comma id, integer id, string name, and then we can have various things over here inside the parameter. Now we have only one. So maybe what I'll do, I'll have a class array. So class, and let's say argue, let's say args is equal to, and let me just do new class, or maybe I can just do class array directly, and I will wrap this up, and I will be using a new C as capital, and I will be basically I will be giving my type. Let's say the type, sorry, the args is already there, right? Let's say method args type. Okay, so now if you're gonna see the attenuation, right? So this attenuation is gonna give you what type. This attenuation method got a integer type over here. So now I'll go back and gonna mention the type here called integer dot let's say class, right? This is one type that we have as the method arguments. I'm gonna pass it over here. All right, so I'm going to get the method called attenuation. It is going to throw me an exception, a checked exception. I need to handle that. So maybe it is going to throw you the no such method exception if the method is not found by Java. Okay, so now this is going to get me a method, right? There is a class called method, and it is going to get you the method information. Now you want to invoke the method, and if you want to invoke the method called attenuation, then how you'll be doing it? You'll be doing like this: method dot invoke, and here you need to give two things. What is the object on top of which object you want to invoke this method called attenuation? Next thing, what is the parameter that you want to pass? Like we have defined here, we want to call a method called attenuation, and the arguments that it takes is an integer. Then here we need to pass in the arguments, like integer value. Let's say the ID is 101. Okay, and here you need to give an object on top of which object you want to call this method. Now on top of which object you want to call this method? On top of student object. Now we want to initialize the student object. This is where we are not initializing it, we are loading it. Now if you want to initialize it, you can do like student info dot new instance, and you can just do control-1. Why? Suppress warning deprecation. Oh, is it deprecated? Maybe from Java. Oh, maybe from Java 9 it is deprecated. So that's fine. I'm gonna go ahead and keep using this one. Control-1, assign statement to new local variable. Now I'm gonna get an object. Maybe I'm gonna cast it to student, because this is the new instance is going to give you back an object. I'm gonna cast it to student. This is going to be my student object. Copy this guy, paste it over here, and there you go. Maybe it is going to throw you some exception. I'm going to add it to over here, and maybe this is also throwing you some exception. I'm going to add it to the throws. Right now, if you're going to do Control S, let's do run this. Let's see if we are able to invoke the method. Run this, and there we go. Student with ID 101 attending the lesson. Okay, so obviously right now, if you're going to go to the student, if you're going to go to this one, This is basically the log which is getting printed, right? Now, if I want to execute this one, then what will happen? Then how can I do that? If I'll go, this is my method name, but this does not take anything inside the parameter. So I can go over here and I can basically load this method, right? So I can copy the same, line from here, paste it here, Control X this one, paste it here. The method name is same, but there is no method argument type. I can remove the argument type because it does not take anything in the parameter. And I'm going to say method 1, let's say, and now I can invoke it. Method 1 dot invoke, and I'm going to invoke it on top of this object called student. And there is no argument type, so I can basically pass in null over here, I believe, because obviously I don't have any parameter here in this method called attenuation. If you're gonna see here, attenuation does not have anything inside the parenthesis right here, so I can go like this one, right? Or I think this is fine. Okay, can I do right click, run as Java application, and this is just giving me attending the session. I just want to drag your attention to this method called, the way we are basically invoking the method, the way we are getting the method right here using the reflection technique, and how we are executing the method using the reflection. Now guys, if you remember in your Java E, in your Spring framework, you used to configure dispatcher servlet, right? How the dispatcher servlet is getting loaded, right? You are just mentioning the dispatcher servlet name and the dispatcher servlet is getting loaded. How it is happening in the runtime? Because in the runtime, it is loading the class name, it is loading it and then instantiating it, all by using the reflection technique like this, okay? And also we'll be able to invoke the methods just like this. Okay, so with this much of knowledge, I can come back to the topic that I want to teach today. So this is clear, right? How to invoke a method. Guys, you are okay with this one?
Yes, Samir.
Perfect. So this is the prerequisite that I wanted to give. So I can close this everything. Okay, now I want to come back to the topic that I want to discuss today. So we have 30 more minutes. Let's complete it. Okay, it's a very simple thing. Okay. Let's talk about something called dynamic proxy right now. So what is a dynamic proxy? Okay, this is an interesting thing. Right now, I think we can get some energy and we can understand this particular thing. Okay, it's a similar concept like proxy, but it is a dynamic proxy. And there is a way to create dynamic proxy in Java. So how can you create dynamic proxy in Java? Okay, I'll be telling you there are certain interfaces that you have to implement, and it is going to help you to create dynamic proxy. Java has some default features in it. There are a couple of types of you can create proxy from classes, and if you know CG from Spring or JavaSist, these are some API which is going to help us to create a bytecode or proxy from the classes. But if you want to create proxy from the interfaces, this is something where we'll be talking about the dynamic proxy stuff, right? So it is a very simple thing, and all your framework is basically using all these things in the low level. So you can imagine this is your client code, and this is your service class which got the business code, and from the client code you are making direct call to the business code, right? So here the call is direct from the client, you are making direct call to the service. Okay, but with the dynamic proxy, what we will be doing, we'll be implementing this proxy layer. As you can see, this is our client code, this is the business code, but the client will call the proxy will call the business code. The proxy will, the service will give the response to the proxy, and the proxy will give the response to the client code, right? So the client will not be interacting with the business code directly, and we have one more layer, as I have told you, is this one called proxy. And here we are going to implement our transaction, logging, security, tracing, and blah, blah, blah right here in this layer. And these are going to be our dynamic proxy, and our aspect oriented programming is basically using the dynamic proxy. So this is the heart of the concept if you're going to talk about the aspect oriented programming, and if you're going to talk about your Spring AOP and everything, you know, the security, the annotation that you are saying at transactional, like, you know, the security annotation that we have discussed inside our Spring security course, all these things uses dynamic proxy behind the scene, and this basically happens in the low level. We are not able to see it, and right now we are going to experience it, and then from tomorrow onwards, whenever we're gonna be thinking about dynamic proxy, it's gonna make so much sense after that. Okay, so now maybe I'm gonna give you some examples of dynamic proxy. So let me create a new project, so Java project, and I'm gonna say dynamic proxy, right? Do a finish. I don't want to create any module here. Okay, now imagine I have an interface, okay, and not class. Let me say I have an interface. Okay, so let's say I have an interface called, let me start it from I, let's say I employee, and I'm gonna put it inside a package called TTO. Okay, so inside the interface called I employee, I want to do certain stuff. I have some methods. For an example, I want to give hike to all my employees. So give hike, and obviously I'm gonna take the amount that I want to give hike, and you know, I will return, let's say this is returning void. And also if some employees are not working, if some employees are taking a lot of leaves, and if those leaves are not granted, I want to do pay cut. So I will do pay cut, and in the pay cut I will be having also the amount. So give me the amount that you want to cut from the employee salary so that I can cut it. So I have couple of things called give hike and pay cut. So give hike will add some amount with the existing salary of an employee. Pay cut is the method. If you're gonna give an amount, let's say 2,000 rupees, then it is gonna reduce 2,000 rupees from the employee salary. Okay, so let's say we got this interface right now, and now we have a method. Maybe we can create a class, and this is going to be my employee class, right? So this is going to be my employee. Maybe I can say it, this is IT employees, right? And IT employee need to implement right now my interface, which is I employee. Okay, now it need to override all the methods, and I need to give the implementation for this couple of methods. And the first thing that I'll be doing here, I'll be using private, and I will be using let's say I will be defining some salaries, a double salary, and let's say in the give hike I can just do salary is equal to salary plus amount, right? So whatever the amount someone will give, I will accept it and I will add it with this salary, right? And pay cut, I can also deduct the same thing. I can just copy the same line, and from this salary, I can say this dot salary, this is also makes some more sense. This dot salary is equal to salary, maybe this dot salary plus amount. Okay, I want to plus the amount whenever someone want to give hike, and I can just do this dot salary minus amount if someone want to do a pay cut, right? And maybe I can just track some more information about the employee. I can just do private int ID, private string name of the employee. Maybe I can have some getter and setter methods of this one, getters and setter, and getters and setters, right? This is cool. Maybe I can also, for now, maybe I want to simplify the code a little bit so the people who are just reading it will not be confused. I will also take, because they might be thinking, okay, if you have an I employee, why you don't have this particular methods right there. Maybe I'm gonna paste this method over here, and I'm gonna be defining a few more methods in my I employee, even some getters and setter, just for some easy understanding. I will not be using it, just defining it over here. I'm going to be removing the body of this and just defining the methods over here. Let's say this is some accessors that I have, and these are my couple of utility methods which I'll be using to give hike and to do pay cut to an employee. Okay, so this is ready. and IT employee is also ready. Now you can just create a client class, right? You can create a class, and let's say this is going to be my client, right? And my client will have a main method, because here I'll be calling the classes that I have created. And now let's say I will be creating like, you know, IT employee object, IT employee, IT employee, IT employee is equal to new IT employee. Okay, and now let's say I'll be setting some values here. IT employee dot set ID, let's say he got 101 ID, and IT employee dot set name, let's say the employee name is Avilash, and let's say IT employee dot set salary. Okay, we don't have a set salary method, so maybe I will just create the getter and setter for the salary. Maybe I'll also move this, at least the get, maybe I'll just move a couple of methods, the accessors to the IT employee, iEmployee interface right now. I'm just keeping it, later I'll be formatting the code. I'm just keeping it for understanding, so that you can see that whatever the methods that I have over here inside the iEmployee, I got it implemented right here inside the IT employee class. Just for your understanding, I kept all my methods inside the interface here, right? And here I got the implementation of everything. And now I'll go to my client class and I'll set the salary. So set salary, and I'm gonna setting the salary, let's say his salary is 30,000. Okay, now I got the IT employee object created right now, and now you can just do IT employee, just give hike. Let's say I want to give 5,000 hike to this particular person, and now you can just do sys out, and you can just do IT employee dot get salary, and you will be getting 35,000 as his salary, because you have given a hike to this particular employee. So it is 80,000.
Abhilash, 80.
Yes. What I have done?
Abhilash, you gave hike 50,000, Abhilash.
Oh, 50,000? Oh, sorry.
Yep.
Basic mathematics. And I'm pretty weak in math, as I have told you. Okay, 35,000 here. I thought, what kind of rubbish logic I have written there. Okay, anyhow, this is looking good. Okay, now here comes the twist. Now I have some requirement, and my requirement here is that now I want to do certain things. The first thing that I want to do, someone can give you hike like this, minus 5,000. And if someone is giving you hike like minus 5,000, then it will be 25,000. And the hike cannot be a negative number here. And there can be many different conditions from your client, from your product owner, right? Who is going to give you different kinds of requirement. This is all my thing that I also want to be get checked before someone gives a hike. Someone can tell you, okay, only give a hike if he is a manager. Only give a hike only if he is an IT employee, but not a help desk person, or not a attendant, or something else, right? So we can have different criteria. And also, let's say I want to log to which employee I'm giving hike, or to this employee which method has got called to give a hike. I want to do some logging and tracing. So where I'll be doing those things. Let's talk about the first condition that I have given you. The first condition here is that if I want to give a hike, the hike cannot be negative number like this. And if you want to get it checked, where you'll be doing that check? Will you be doing it over here? But if you'll be doing it over here, then obviously the code will be bulky. The code will be not readable. It will be non-readable code. So the ideal thing that we can do here is that we can separate our business code. This is my logic that I have written to give the hike. And my logic need to be separated from this kind of logging, tracing, validation, checks for this kind of thing. And for that, instead of making a call directly over here inside the client, right here, I'm doing itEmployee.giveHike. We are calling the method called giveHike on top of the real object called itEmployee. But I don't want to do that, because I want to do it on top of a proxy. And how can I do that? And here comes the twist. And now we are about to create a dynamic proxy in Java. And the way we'll be creating the dynamic proxy, okay, because right now I have given you few requirements. My requirements here is that I want to get it checked if the number is negative. I want to have a logger here. I want to see a logger here, like the logger, like okay, 5,000 hike has been given to the employee of Vilash. I want to get it printed over here. To write this logic, like to write this kind of work, like any pre-processing work or post-processing work, along with this work itself, I want to create a proxy for that. And the place where I'll be doing all this thing inside a method called invoke method, and that method is given by Java. Okay, and you can create it by creating a class here. Okay, and the class name will be, let's say, what is that? Salary, right? Employee salary invocation handler, right? I'll be handling the method invocation here. Okay, and this is going to be a class. Maybe I'll put it inside a package called proxy. Okay, and inside this package, this class need to implement a interface, and this is an interface given by Java, and the interface name is invocation handler. Okay, now it got a method. The method I want to implement over here, and you can see this is the method where I'll be writing my code. I will be writing my pre-processing code here. I'll be making actual call to my service layer. Okay, like in a business code, I can call it over here, and I can also do the post-processing work here, because the proxy we will create out of this handler, this is going to be my employee salary invocation handler, and using this method, using this class, will be creating proxy, and every method call that we're gonna make right now on top of our interface, which is going to be IT employee, if you're gonna call pay card, if you're gonna call get ID, if you're gonna call give hike, if you're gonna make any kind of call on top of this class or on top of this interface, I want that call to go by my invocation handler, and this is where the entry point will be. And don't look at that. I will be talking about all these things which we have over here. Like you can see, we got a method over here. We are just discussing about method. Let's say someone is calling the give hike method. We'll have a hold of that particular method over here. If someone is calling get ID, if someone is calling get salary, if someone is calling XYZ method, that method, which method is getting called by the client, that access I'll be getting over here. And let's say someone is calling a method called get salary right here. For an example, go to the client. Let's say he's giving minus 5,000, minus 50,000, or 5,000 itself. Whatever the argument that he has given for this give hike method, I will be getting it over here with this args. There can be multiple arguments. That's why this is an array, because there can be many arguments for a method. So the method name I'll capture over here, the method arguments I'll capture over here, and also I'll have a capture for my proxy object also here. So let's try to implement our logic here, right? The first thing that I'll be doing inside the employee salary invocation handler, I'll be defining my target object. So which object I'm targeting, guys? By the end of this lesson, everything will be clear. Just put your attention. I'm gonna do 2 or 3 time recap. Things will be clear. I just need 5 or 10 minutes. Okay, put all your concentration here. So here, first thing that I need a target object, and my target object here is going to be my interface name, and my interface name here is the employee, iEmployee. So copy that, go over here, and I'll say employee. This is going to be my target name. I can make it a private, Control-Shift-O to import this one. And now on top of this object, I can actually make calls, right? So the way I can make calls right now, I can use this method. I can do method dot invoke, right? And I can pass in the object that I'll be getting from here. But this is an interface, okay? Where from we'll get the object? We will have a constructor right here to initialize it. So I'll just give, go to the source, go to the constructor using field, do a generate. And now when someone will create the object of employee salary invocation, he'll pass the IT employee object or employee IMPL object, any impl object that we have, that will be passed, and that will be set to this guy. And now here I'll be getting my implementation. For an example here, I employee, do a control T, this is the implementation, IT employee. So this object we will get over here, right? How we'll be getting it? Because when someone will create the object of this guy inside the client class, let's say here in the client class, someone will come and create the object like this, employee salary invocation handler, it's a pretty big name. I'm gonna say EMP salary EMP handler is equal to new employee salary invocation handler. And now you need to pass the IT employee object, and you can see this is my concrete object, right? This is not an interface object, this is the impl object. Now here I'm constructing the employee salary invocation handler object and passing in the IT employee object, and this got all the values over here. Now do not call this give hike method on top of this. Let's say I got these three things over here. I'm setting all these three things with this IT employee. I'm setting the ID, name, and salary. Now inside the invocation handler right here, this IT employee will be set to this guy using this constructor whenever we'll be using that constructor inside our client core right here, because here only we are creating the object. Okay, now let me go to that constructor. Once the value will be injected to here, I can do method.invoke, and let's say someone is calling a give hike method, or someone is calling paycot method, someone is calling XYZ method. Those method I want to invoke. I want to invoke on top of which object? On top of this object called IT employee. So this is my interface, right? So it will get this value. So I'll copy this target name. Some people tell it target also. Maybe I'll say employee target. Okay. So it will not be difficult whenever you will be seeing this one. Employee target, paste it here, okay, and paste it here, right? So now what I can do, I can copy this target object and I'll paste it here, right? And the arguments, whatever the arguments someone is giving, I can simply pass it over here. And now I'll be able to call the method. So let's try to call the method. So now we are actually created a invocation handler, and I got an invoke method. I know my code flow will come to here whenever I'll make any call on top of my IT employee object or in my employee object. So in order to create a proxy for this interface, and to create a proxy, I'll be using this handler. And the way I'll be doing it inside the client code, I will be using a class called proxy. And this is coming from java.lang.reflect. And there is a method here called new proxy instance. Okay, it will take three different things. The first thing will be the class loader. Okay, I'll be using this class loader, which is the implementation of this interface called iEmployee. So I'll go back, I'll use this class loader, copy this guy, go back to the client.java, and you can just do iEmployee dot class dot get class loader. Okay, the next thing will be your interface name. Like, you know, what are the interfaces which is implementing this? Like, you know, what are the base interfaces that we have? Now the base interface that we have for this guy is iEmployee. Now I'm going to be copying this guy. I'll go back here. This is my main interface, and I'm going to be placing my interface over here. But I will not be able to paste it directly because I need to define it, and you can see it is going to take it as a array of class. Okay, so I'm going to be creating a new class object, new class. This is going to be an array, and here inside this I'm going to be giving my iEmployee.class. This is going to be my second parameter. This is going to be the first parameter. This is going to be the second parameter, and this is going to be the third one. And the third one will be basically the invocation handler. And my invocation handler is the EMP handler. So I'm going to be pasting it over here, and I'll be wrapping this up. So here I'm creating a new proxy object, okay? And I'm using this invocation handler to create my proxy object. Now I can just do a control-1 and assign statement to a new local variable, and this is gonna give me a proxy object. But this new proxy instance will return you an object. I know I'm gonna get my iEmployee object over here, so I can just do cast it to iEmployee, and right here also I can say iEmployee, and I can say employee here, right? This is my object, proxy object that I'll be getting, my employee proxy that I'm creating over here. Previously I used to create my proxy object manually. Right now I'm creating the proxy object by using this method that I have called new proxy instance, and using this employee salary invocation handler, and this handler I'm passing it to the new proxy instance right here as the third parameter, okay? And now I'll be getting my proxy. Now I can just do employee, and then I can give any method here. I can give employee dot give hike, and now this give hike method, let's say I'm going to give 5,000 rupees hike. Now the method that I'm calling is give hike on top of this proxy called employee. Now where the flow will go? The flow will go to here. Now here the flow will come to the invoke method, and the method here, which method I'm calling here? Look at that. The method that I'm calling here is give hike. So here the method I'll get is give hike. So I want to invoke the give hike method on top of which object? On top of this employee target. Okay, and right now this will be initialized. Why? Because this object where we're initializing that object is here. Okay, we are passing the IT employee here, which is our concrete object, and we got all the information. So the object will be initialized right here, the employee target, and now we got the method here, right? Then we'll do method at invoke. We pass in the target, and also we pass in the arguments. The arguments of the method, let's say the method that will be capturing here will be this one. Okay, give hike. What is the argument we are passing? 5,000. That 5,000 will be capturing here. Okay, and we are passing all the arguments right here, right? And this method will be invoked, and this will return something. And obviously, if you remember, right now the give hike method that we have here, this is not returning anything. If you're going to go into that, it is a void, so it will return null. So that's fine. If it is going to give something, that return type you will be capturing right here in the line number 27, right? When you call the method.invoke. Now this invoke, I can return it back, or I can just write it result or return type or return value. Okay, and I can just return it over here, but right now it is void. The method will be void, so it will not be returning anything. Can I go to my client code? Can I do a right click? Maybe after giving the hike, I can just do a sysout, and I can just do employee, which is my proxy object, this object, copy this, and can I get the get salary method right now? I'm gonna give a 60,000 hike right now, 6,000 hike right now. The best salary was 30,000. Let's do right click, run as Java application. Let's say we are able to execute the proxy. Yes, and it is giving 36,000 right now. Now I want to go to the employee salary invocation handler, and I'll give a breakpoint here in the line number 27. Okay, now I'll do a right click, maybe I'll do a right click, run as Java application. Okay, sorry, not run as, debug as Java application. Let's see that how the thing will happen. So here I'll make a give hike call, so the call will go to the invocation handler. Okay, let me just come out of this perspective. Okay, and now let's see the proxy. Now the proxy object we got here, you can see, is the employee salary invocation handler, and now it is holding the IT employee as a target, right? And the method that we have here is a give hike method. You can see this is my method name, give hike, and it is accepting a double value, right? And what is the argument that we have passing in? We're passing 6,000 as the argument. So whatever value we have passed here, right, on top of this employee proxy, you are calling that method we are capturing here. Okay, and this is the give hike method, this is the value that we got, and this is the proxy object that we got, right? Now we will be invoking this method. Whenever we'll invoke this, now this is going to return value, and for now the method has been invoked, but right now it is null. right? Obviously, this method is not going to return anything because the type is void, as you can see, right? Now, if you're going to do step over, maybe I can do a resume one more time, and again you can see the flow is coming to the invoke method of this guy. Why the flow is coming to here? Because now look at the method that you have. Now you have a get salary method. You remember I told you any method that you want to call, right? You are calling on top of what? You are printing something. Employee.getSalary again you are doing. In this one previously we are seeing. Now again you are basically calling this method called getSalary, and you are calling on top of this employee object, which is a proxy, and this is a proxy. And now you are calling the getSalary method. Obviously nothing is there inside the argument. You can go over here and you can do a step over. You can see argument should be null, method should be getSalary. And now if you're going to do step over, it is not going, I think it is going to return you the value called 36,000. And now if you're going to do resume, it's printing it over here, right? So we are basically able to invoke this method on each of our method call that we are making to our original object, which is the IT employee object. Actually, we are calling to this object, and we are calling the give hike and the pay cut method. But the way the call is going through, through the invocation handler that we have created over here by implementing the invocation handler. And as we have the complete access to the method, proxy, arguments, we can do whatever we want. As I have told you, you want to check whether the hike that someone is giving is negative or not. Maybe you can do it over here. You can from the arguments, which is the array, because we can have many arguments for a method. Okay, you can just call a method, you can pass in many arguments. Now I'm just going to have the first argument because I know I have only one argument, so I'm gonna be getting the amount, so double. Okay, and I'm gonna say double salary or double hike value. Okay, so this is the value someone is giving, right? So you can see in the client someone is giving the hike of 6,000. This 6,000 I'm capturing here because the argument will hold the value. I'm getting it from the argument, and now I can do some checks. I can do if. Now I can do hike value is less than or equal to 0.0. You're gonna be throwing, maybe I can throw an exception directly, throw new runtime exception, and I can pass in the value hike amount can't be null, hike amount is not valid. Let me just write like this. Okay, and let's say you want to do some post processing right here. You can do the post processing. You can see here I'm doing the pre-processing, making the actual call to the real object to this employee target, which will hold the object of IT employee. And before and after it, I'm doing certain things. Before it, I have done certain things, and after it, I'm going to do some post processing. Like, I can have a sys out here, and I can say, let's say executing method. Let's say which method I'm executing. I'm executing a method on, let's say, method dot get name. Let's say this method I'm executing. Then for employee ID, let's say I can just get the employee ID, let's say from the target. So what is that? Employee target that I have over here. From here I will be getting the ID or the name, whatever you want to print. Target.getID, right? I'm also logging something right here. Now you can go to the IT employee, okay, and you can just go to the client.java and do right click, run as Java application, and it is 101. Okay, but now it is giving me a problem because cannot load from the object array, args is null. Okay, now the problem here is that this get salary is giving me the problem. Now if you're gonna execute this one, this will not give you any problem. I'll tell you why we are having the problem. Java application, now it is saying it is just saying that giving hike for the employee ID 101. Okay, and if you're gonna give a negative value here, let's say minus 6,000 here, now this is gonna throw you an exception. Java exception, hike amount is not valid, so our validation is triggering. But as I have told you, whenever you are basically executing the get salary method. Also for the get salary, now for this method, get salary method, whenever you are calling this, it is also, we are also calling it on top of a proxy, which is the employee, right? And now it is giving a null pointer exception. It is saying cannot load from the object array, args is null. Why the argument is null? We have to make sure, guys, few things. Can I go back to my invocation handler? Now this piece of pre-processing logic that we have written right now, it will be executed for each method call that you're gonna make on top of your target method. On your target method, there are many methods like give hike, pay cut, get ID, set ID, so get salary, set salary. I don't want my pre-processing logic to be executed for every method. Let's say I only want to get it done for some certain method. So I can make a if clause, and I can just wrap my pre-processing logic with a if clause, and I'm gonna say only execute this method if method dot get name, if the method name equals to, what is that? What method we are calling? Can I go back to the client? Only give hike method. Copy this, go back there and paste it. Only execute this logic for give hike method, and for all the other method, pass it out. Don't cast the argument 0 value, and don't do certain stuff. Don't throw me any null pointer exception. Can I do that right now? Can I do right click, run as Java application without commenting this line? And you can see all the method that I am calling right now. Give hike, it is printing me a log. Then get salary, executing the method get salary on the ID 101, and also it is just giving me its value called 36,000. And the main point here is that couple of things: the way I have built the proxy and the way I have written the employee salary invocation handler. And as I told you before, the Spring AOP uses this kind of proxy behind the scene. Okay, and the way the transaction management happens is use some invocation handler in a behind the scene. Okay, whatever the method that you want to maintain the transaction for, that method undergoes some pre-processing work and some post-processing work. The pre-processing, maybe they will be opening the transaction. Post-processing, maybe they will be committing the transaction. And in the, here they're actually making the call to the object that you are making a transactional annotation annotated with, right? So this is how the things happens, but in the next class we'll be talking about that one. So before I wrap up, can you guys tell me if these things make sense? And oh, everyone is over here, you guys haven't dropped yet? I think,
Yes, sir.
yeah, tell me, if it is making sense, and tomorrow we'll continue.
Yeah, well, it's fine. But will it work same if we implement multiple implementation class for the interface?
Exactly, it will work same. You just need to you just need to go over here to the client to
pass the type.
Exactly, exactly. Right here, you need to keep on adding all your interfaces name. Some other example I'll be giving tomorrow. So Mick, just tell me this concept right now making a little bit of sense.
Yes, yes.
Okay, just understand, guys, this is how we will create dynamic proxy. And if the reason why I want to tell you this thing, because tomorrow I think while explaining I'll be implementing some invocation handler to show you how the transactional work behind the scene. And at that time might be you will be confused if you'll be seeing invocation handler. Maybe this will work this will just look like crazy. Why the heck you are writing invoke here? What is this method? If someone is not aware about reflection, he'll go away. So what is this method? What is this proxy? What is this class object? That's why I just wanted to give you a little bit of hands-on before we get started. For you guys, make sure whoever is hearing the recording right now, complete this lesson. If you are not aware about the reflection topic and the proxy topic and the dynamic proxy topic, make some hands-on, then only you go to the next class, right? Because as we are progressing with this course, I'm planning to give you much more things than the basic thing, and that will be done if we'll be doing some hands-on like this. Otherwise, the things will be complicated if we'll straight away jump into the topic. Okay, any other things, guys? Quickly ask me. My sister is standing outside and she wants to go office. Anyone has any other questions? Quickly ask me. I need to go away.
Please
Yes,
upload
how the
that.
logging statement
Logging statement, Akhil?
is printing before that method.
Printing before that? Yeah, of course.
How is it printing? I mean,
How is it printing, Akhil?
yes.
Because every time the method is getting called. So where is the confusion? Tell me.
Yeah. So every time you call that method that you implemented, like the logging statement should be printed before that method.
After
So
that
you-
method. Yeah, after
that method.
this thing will be done, this statement will be printed. For an example, Akhil, right now
If you call a different method, then
if you'll call
it won't
any
print.
different method, still the this logging statement will be called.
Okay.
All right, so just go ahead and just try this one. You can go to client. You can just copy this guy and just do Control B and just do a, let's say, pay cut for this employee. Let's say I'm gonna be 20,000. I'll reduce, right? And now
And I mean, why you say it as a target, employee target?
okay, going into that, okay, Ranesh Java application, and you can see every time I'm calling any kind of method, the logging statement will be printed. If you want to control it, just control it right there. Okay, just control it from here. The reason why I'm calling it a target, because like this is the object I want to initialize, because inside this employee salary invocation handler, the way I'll be invoking the method, here, method.invoke right here, I'll be invoking upon an object, and that is going to be my target object, right? Let's say I want to invoke a method called get salary, pay cut, with, let's say, any method like give hike, any method I'll be executing on top of this guy. That's why I'm calling it a target object. Okay, making sense?
Okay.
And this object
Yes,
I'm
yes.
initializing over here, right? And then I'll
So
be
client
giving,
will initialize it.
yeah, sorry,
Client will
initialize it. Yes, client will initialize it. And maybe there is a better way to do this. We can now actually move this code to here as a static method, and then client will directly call our static method to to have the proxy. So what you guys can do while practicing, you can just move this piece of code to this invocation handler under just create a method called create proxy and move those code to here. Okay, I will not be doing it, guys. I'm running out of time. So you just move this piece of code to here that you have written, and here the client will just call the create proxy method and will pass in certain the object called iEmployee, or maybe whatever the things that you want to create, and all this invocation handler creation and everything, you just hide it with a static method. Maybe you just create a public static.
I'm just calling that method employee.give hike will also be shifted here.
No. Employee.hike, don't shift it over here. Client will call the business method. That's it. But he will be calling it through the proxy method.
The proxy, right?
Yeah, client will call it through the proxy method. So here he'll just call the create proxy method that you will design it for me. He'll just create the create proxy method. Okay, and on top of this invocation handler maybe. Or
then
maybe
you will get an employee object, and using that employee object you will call from line number 20.
Correct. So create proxy method just return you the proxy object. So just move all this code to a create proxy method under this class right here and do that thing for me. Okay,
Got it. Abhilash.
all right,
Thank you.
okay, any other question, guys, quickly, if anything else? Hi, hello.
Upload the code, Abhilash.
Upload the code. Yes, I'll be doing it. So Mike.
Yes, Avinash, please.
Yes. No need to say please, Prasad. I'll be doing it.
Actually, we should practice.
You should. Tomorrow, guys, before you come back, please do practice. Otherwise, see, this week I'm planning to do hands-on with transactional. So if you are attending, 5 people are attending, 10 are attending, 15 are attending, whoever is attending, make sure that you guys are doing hands-on and you guys are okay with the topic. And after this week, I'll be wrapping up transactional annotation stuff. Okay?
Abhilash,
Yeah, Supriya.
can we integrate interceptor here for post-processing and pre-processing?
Interceptor is a different thing. Interceptor is not proxy, Supriya, right? Interceptor is just a filter-like concept. that you have in Spring MVC. I'm talking about creating dynamic proxy. Yeah, interceptor can do the same work. I know you are relating to that because there also we got pre-handle and post-handle method, right, Supriya? Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, but
yes.
it is for different purpose.
It is for different purpose, correct.
To like before hitting the controller and after,
Correct. But here we are dealing with proxy. Okay. Yeah, Omkar, tell me. Omkar, yesterday I wanted to talk to you, but I had work, so maybe I did not go out, and also I thought that I'll go to play carom, and there whenever you'll be calling me, I'll be picking your call up. But I stuck with the calls, and today maybe around 1:30 you can ping me here on Skype. Omkar will have a call. Okay. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Guys? No?
Abhilash, if I have any other interface apart from employee, so
Right.
I should again write the invocation handler for that, and
you need
another
to
interface.
you need to put it over here, and any other interface in the sense a interface which implements another interface.
No, Abhilash. So here we have employee as well.
You can write multiple invocation handler, Lavanya.
Okay.
You can write a multiple invocation handler. Maybe similar kind of stuff we'll be doing in the next class when we'll be doing with Spring AOP and the transactional. Okay.
Okay.
So do you think this prerequisite session makes sense, or you guys most of you were aware about all these things?
No.
It's really useful, sir.
Useful.
Okay.
Otherwise, we couldn't understand the real concept when we enter into that.
All right. Okay, then maybe I thought that most of you should be. I think the reflection concept you should be knowing about it. Okay, but make sure that while you are practicing, you're practicing everything, because I told you about the reflection stuff because of this guy, only because of this line, method dot invoke, right? Just try to invoke some method by using reflection. Okay. Cool. All right. See you guys tomorrow. Thank you very much. Bye bye. Take care.
Recording stopped.
Thank you guys. Bye. Have a good day. Good night. Bye. All right then. So this is it for the session. I'll see you guys in the next video with a pretty interesting topic, because we'll be setting up our Spring environment, our Spring project, and we'll get started with the transaction management in Spring Framework. So see you there.